Okay, Parshas Balak. A lot of different things in Parshas Balak that we need to figure out and understand. It gets extremely complicated. So let's go. In Parshas Balak, it teaches us an important lesson. Sometimes we, the Jewish people, we lose sight of who and what we are. Sometimes we lose sight. What does it take to remind us of who and what we are? Sometimes it takes an outsider. You know, in families, sometimes it's good to consult someone outside the family, because they see things differently than inside the family. Here, Jews didn't really know who or what they were. Who told them how great they were? Bilam. All those wonderful brachos. There's an old joke they say that there was a person reading the Arab newspaper, a Jew reading the Arab newspaper. So someone said to him, why do you read the Arab newspaper? Read the Jewish press, read a different paper. So he says, I read the Jewish press, it tells us all the problems we have, and there's fights between the Orthodox and the Conservative and the Reform. I read the Arab newspaper, it says how Jews are rich and Jews are powerful. I like it. It's all good news. I like to hear that.
Sorry, Rabbi.
Hi. I like to hear that. What's the problem?
No, I completely just wanted to drive it.
We had it towed. Your car somewhere? I don't know. It's not a problem. You sound like that was a problem. It wasn't a problem at all. So that's what he says. I read the Arab newspaper because it has all the good news to it. I don't read the Jewish newspaper. In the end, with all of Bilam's curses and brachot and everything else, what really hurt the Jewish people? It wasn't Moab, and it wasn't Bilam. What was it in the end? Ourselves. We did it to ourselves. We got involved with the daughters of Moab, the daughters of Midian. We lacked the emunah, the bitachon, avodah zarah, the assimilation. The irony is that no matter what Balak and Bilam were plotting all those days or weeks or months, and all the curses and brachot back and forth, in the end, the worst enemy of Am Yisrael was no different than ourselves. We were our own worst enemy. So we read Parshas Balak always before Shiv Asar B'Tammuz, before the fast which starts tomorrow. And it reminds us, the Churban, first Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash, and I'm going to tell you things tonight that you probably never heard before. I'm going to tell you stories tonight. But it's just amazing. It's just amazing how, at the end of the day, the real enemy sometimes is ourselves. It says, Vayar Balak, and Balak saw. So what did the Meforshim say? There are three things we're not supposed to look at. One of them is the Kohanim, when they do Birkat Kohanim. Give me something else you're not supposed to look at. It's also in the sky. It has many colors to it.
Rainbow.
The rainbow. You know, a few weeks ago there was a double rainbow. It rained.
Oh, yeah.
It was a double rainbow. It was gorgeous. And everybody says you're not supposed to look at it, but everybody was looking at it. What?
Sign.
It's a sign.
Is it bad luck?
It's supposed to remind us of the Mabul and the destruction of the world.
Supposed to say a bracha.
You're supposed to say a bracha also. It was right before sunset, so it was there for, what?
After we see it, we say
After you say it, sure. Bless you. And the third thing you're not supposed to really look at is the moon, the Lavana. You're not supposed to stare at it. So they say, Vayar Balak. You're not supposed to see what Balak stands for. Beis is Birkat Kohanim, Lamed is for the Lavana, and the Kuf is for Keshet, for the rainbow. So Balak's name has in it those letters the things that you're not to see. Okay.
Who brings that?
Who brings that down? It just says Chachamim. It doesn't give a name. Rabbi Fran brings down from the Shemen HaTov. And it's interesting. It's based on a Rashi. Rabbi Fran brings down from Rashi, it's as follows. Hashem says to Bilam, who are these people? He engages them in conversation. He says, Balak, the king of Moab, sent them to me because this nation came out from Egypt, and he wants me to curse them. So Hashem says to Bilam that you cannot curse them. You cannot curse them. They're not meant to be cursed. So Bilam says, first Hashem says to Bilam, you can't go with them. Lo selech imor. We can't go with them. Omar lo. So Bilam said to Hashem, okay. Im kain al kalalem b'makomi. I'll curse them from my house. That means it would be best for me to go see them and point the finger and say, I curse you. But if you're telling me I can't go, no big deal. I'll go into my bedroom and I'll put together some type of concoction and I'll curse them from my house. So Hashem said to them, no. Omar lo sor ta'am. Don't curse the people. You can't curse them. So then Bilam said to Hashem, okay, I can't go and I can't curse. I'll give him my own bracha. Omar lo im kain avorchem. I'll give the Jewish people a blessing. Omar lo, so Hashem said to them, they don't need your brachos. They're blessed without you. Like the example of a person who has a wasp or a bee. What do they say to the bee? I don't want your honey, and I don't want your sting. I don't want anything from you. Leave me alone. So the Shema Tov says something very, very interesting. And we're going to go into this a little bit more in detail. He says at the end of the Parsha, Bilam and Balak devise a plan. Let the women from Moab and Midian, they're very beautiful, let them go out and mingle amongst the Jewish people. And they'll want to have relations, and then they'll pull out their idols, and they'll do Gilei Arayot, they'll do Avodah Zarah, and we'll get the Jews. So the question comes up that the Shema Tov says, why did they think that would work? That means here's a nation, the Jews. All the years they were in Egypt, how many Jewish people got involved with the Egyptian people? Nobody. One case, nobody. The men didn't get involved with the women didn't get involved with the men. There was no overlap. The Jews were not into those things. So why did Balak and Bilam think it would work? So the Shema Tov says this is why the brachos of Bilam were so dangerous. He says the Jewish men were schmoozing and talking, and they saw all these beautiful women coming. So one man said to the other, we got to get out of here. This is dangerous. He says, nah, what's so dangerous? You heard what Bilam said. We are a nation, Ma'tovu holecha Yaakov, our houses are so good, our houses are so pure, Ba'goyim lo yizchashev, we have nothing to do with Goyim, they can't tempt us, they can't influence us. So the bracha of Bilam gave them such a false sense of pride, such a false sense, of confidence, that it got to be such a point where the Jews felt they were in no danger, no risk. But in the end, they fell. In the end, they were in danger. In the end, thousands upon thousands died. So we see from here what Rashi was saying. Rashi was saying they would have been better off without Bilam at all. Not his curses, not his brachot. Sometimes a person gives you a bracha, it's really a curse. I'm involved, with din Torahs all the time. And there's one group, one bet din, that whenever I have to go and sit with them, one of the dayanim on the bet din always says to me, oh, I'm so happy you're here. I said, why? He says, now that you're here, things will go smooth, you're very organized, things will be great, and we'll get to the truth. That's shochat, that's bribery. Because now, I feel very good. He said that about me, I feel very good, He spoke very nice about me. I feel very good. So now if he has a particular favorite, or if he has a particular position, and if I go against that, he won't be so happy with me. Mm-hmm. But I want him to be happy with me. It plays tricks on your mind. And even though I know this in advance, and I know when I'm going as I'm driving there, I know he's going to say this to me. So I'm going to close my ears, but I don't want to close my ears, so I want to hear it. So, that's what it means. We don't want your curses, but we don't want your blessings. Okay? Next week, not this week, next week I'm going to explain to you at the end what the Nasi, Shevet Shimon, what his plan was. He was a great tzaddik. He was one of the leaders of the Jewish people. He was one of the Gedolei Yisrael. He was bigger than the Tanoim, bigger than the Amoraim. Imagine if I told you that his name, he was the Chofetz Chaim. Would you believe the Chofetz Chaim would do what he did? No. But he did. The The question is, why? Next week, blow you away. Okay, let's go a little bit further. I have a lot more to tell you on this parsha. Okay, in the end, Balak sends another group of people. Hashem says to Bilam, what do you want to do? Bilam says, I really want to go. So Hashem says, you can go, but just remember, you can only say what I tell you. So Bilam is all excited, yay, I can go. You know, he gets up in the morning early, he can't sleep all night. He saddles his own donkey, his own mule, you know, he's hot to trot. He's out at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, he's not tired, he's all excited. As he's going, Hashem sends a malach to caution him, to warn him. It says a malach Hashem. Rashi says it was a malach of Rachamim that should make sure Bilam doesn't make any mistakes. That means Hashem really cared about Bilam in his own way. And this mule goes to the side one time and goes to the side the next time and then crushes his foot against the wall and eventually just sits down. And Bilam is so angry and he starts beating and hitting and whipping this mule. Finally, Vayiftach Hashem es pi ha'ason. Hashem opens the mouth of this mule. V'atomer leBilam, and he says to Bilam, Me'o asisu lecho, what did I do to you? Ki kisani zeh sholosh regalim, you hit me these 3 times. Now that's an unusual term, regalim. Normally, how do you say times in Hebrew? What? Pa'amim. Zeh shalosh pa'amim, it should have said. So Rashi right away jumps up and says, what does it mean, regalim? Hashem said to Bilam, Bilam, you want to destroy the Jewish people. You can't destroy a nation that keeps the 3 Chagim. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. Shalosh regalim. Which is very strange. Tell them that you can't destroy the people who keep Shabbat, or keep kosher, or keep shatnez, or wears talis and tefillin. You know, what does Rosh Hashanah, what does Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot mean to that? So the Maharal says something interesting. He says the Chagim represent the Avot. Pesach is supposed to be Avraham, Shavuot is Yitzchak, and Sukkot, we know Yaakov made Sukkot is Yaakov. He says you can never destroy a nation who always looks back at their leaders, their parents, their grandparents. I spoke at a bar mitzvah. I said to the bar mitzvah boy, think about it. Why are you here today? You're here today because of your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents. That means you come with a Mesorah. There's a chain. There's a link. You're part of a link. So Hashem said to Bilam, you're going to destroy a nation that has connected with a chain to the past? You'll never do it. One of the Meforshim say something fascinating. Hashem said to Bilam, if you destroy the Jewish people, what's going to happen to the Torah? The Jews accepted the Torah, Nasa v'nishma. Bilam said, there are many nations out there. Some other nation will accept the Torah. Hashem says, I offered it to all the nations. What do they say to me? No, thank you. So Bilam says, I'll do the Torah. Give it to me. Wow. I'll do the Torah. Hashem says, well, you can't do the entire Torah. Why not? One of the mitzvahs of the Torah is to be Oleh Regel, to go up to Yerushalayim on the Chagim. But if a person can't walk, they're lame, or if they're missing one of their eyes, they're patur from Oleh Regel. So he said, Bilam, you can't do this mitzvah. What's the message? I said to the bar mitzvah boy, what's the message? The message is very simple. No one Jew can do the Torah. There are certain mitzvahs for only Kohanim, there are certain mitzvahs only for Leviim, there are certain mitzvahs only if you live in Israel, there are certain mitzvahs if you live in Chutz La'aretz, there are certain mitzvahs for women, there are certain mitzvahs for men, there are certain mitzvahs for a melech. No one Jew can do all 613 mitzvahs. But as a group, we can do 613 mitzvahs. So before your bar mitzvah, you're an individual, you're a person. You're your own person. Kids generally are very selfish. They only think of themselves. But now that you're bar mitzvah, you're part of a group. Now you can do mitzvahs. I can't give you a mitzvahs when you're 10 because you're not part of the group. When you're 13, now you're part of the group. You'll do your mitzvahs, I'll do my mitzvahs, you'll do your mitzvahs, and together we get it all done. Bilam didn't understand that. Bilam thought, I can do it all. I can do all the mitzvahs. So Hashem says, you're never going to succeed in replacing a nation that keeps Shalosh Regalim.
He was very genius.
Bilam was quite smart. We're going to see something more about that in a moment. Then it says later on that Bilam looked to the desert. So the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says he focused on the stories he heard of the golden calf, the Chet HaEgel. And he says, I know how I'm going to get Hashem angry at the Jewish people. I'm going to remind Hashem of the golden calf. How they just left Egypt, they accepted the Torah, and within minutes they betrayed you and threw you off. So the Pirush, there's a Pirush over here on Chumash, and he says something fascinating. He says that how many hours late was Moshe Rabbeinu?
6.
6. Very good. How'd you know that? I'm very impressed. Let's get that on the tape. Ki bo sheish Moshe. Moshe came 6 hours late. Okay. Now let me just ask you something. Let's say I have milk, a big bowl of milk, and some meat sauce falls into the milk. What's the ratio to make it batel?
1 to 60.
1 to 60. Got it. There are 7 days of Pesach, 1 day of Shavuot, 7 days of Sukkot. That's 15 days. 15 days times 24 hours is 360 hours. Moshe came 6 hours late. 6 times 60 is 360. So he says that Bilam says, the Chet HaEgel, Hashem says, by keeping Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, the sin of the golden calf is batel 1 in 60. It's an amazing thing. And then the Gemara says that if a person doesn't keep the Chagim, it's like they worship the Avodah Zarah. What's the connection? Because it's the Chagim that neutralize the Chet HaEgel. So if you don't keep the Chagim, the Chet HaEgel comes back, and Bilam was lost. Okay. Balak comes to Bilam, says, I want you to come, I need your help, I want you to curse the Jewish people. Bilam says, and if I curse the Jewish people, what are you going to do? I'll be able to fight them, I'll be able to defeat them, I'll be able to drive them out. So Bilam says to Balak, what makes you think you can do that? Paro couldn't do it, he lost. Amalek tried twice, right when they left Egypt and when Aaron died. They lost. What makes you think you can do it? Balaam's answer was shocking, and this will be important next week when I explain to you what was thinking. Balak said, Korach took on Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did Korach think he could win? Korach against Moshe, what were the chances? So the Medrash says that Korach had a nevuah. He's going to have a great-great-grandchild named Shmuel Hanavi. And Shmuel is so great, he's like Moshe and Aaron. So Korach said, I'm not going to die. Because if I die, there will be no Shmuel Hanavi. And I see in the future Shmuel Hanavi. He didn't know that his children were going to do teshuvah. He didn't know that. So Korach says, it's a win. The fix is in. Because I see in the future Shmuel Hanavi. Balak said to Bilam, I am not going to die. He says, how do you know that? He says, because I once asked you, what's in my future?
Moshiach.
And you said, Moshiach is in your future. Ruth is in your future. You're going to have a great-great-daughter, Ruth, who's going to give birth to David, who's going to give birth to Melech HaMoshiach. And you're going to hear next week things that you never heard before. Even this week you're already hearing things you never heard before. So Balak said, I can't die. The fix is in. Now, he was right. In a way, he was right. I'll show it to you. In next week, Parshas Matos, Moshe says, you know what? It's time we even the score with these women who came. So he gets the army together. Pinchas leads the army. And who do they attack? Midian. Moshe says, hey, not just Midian, you got to attack Moab. It was Moab's plan. They thought about it. Hashem comes to Moshe and says, Moshe, don't touch Moab. Moshe says, why not? It was their plan. They were the instigators. It all started with Moab. Midian was dragged in by Moab. I'm going to go after the enemy. The enemy is Moab. Hashem says, not the way you think I think. We need Moab. What for do we need Moab? For Rus and Moshiach. So who do they attack? Midian. They leave Moab alone. And Moab is protected until David HaMelech is born. After David HaMelech is born, one of his first campaigns is to go and seek vengeance against which country? Moab. David HaMelech wipes out Moab. But until David HaMelech is born, Moab was protected, not to be touched. And next week you'll hear even more about that. So, Balak had a plan. He thought for sure he was going to win. Now, there's something interesting about Parshas Balak. There are no stops. Meaning, if you go through any parsha in the Torah, if you ever get an aliyah, you see that there are lines that are left blank. There are breaks. Usually, in the Chumash, there's either a samach or the letter pei. That means a break. One means you leave a space of 9 letters. The other means you leave the whole line blank and you start the next paragraph. In Parshas Balak, there are no breaks. It goes straight through. Solid pages. Why? So the Chofetz Chaim says, a very fascinating thing the Chofetz Chaim says. He says, look at all the things that happened to Bilam. And he doesn't get the message. Imagine, he's riding his donkey, his mule, and the mule talks to him. And he doesn't get the message. Imagine you're driving your car, and all of a sudden your car talks to you.
He talks now.
Right?
He talks now.
The problem is, today cars do talk to you. They tell you turn left and turn right, you need gas, your oil is low. Some cars don't stop talking to you.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, right? Some cars don't stop talking to you. So it's not a good example today. But back in the days when cars didn't talk to you, if all of a sudden your car started talking to you, you would have to stop for a moment and think about it. So the Chofetz Chaim says, you know why Bilam never thought about it? Because he never stopped. In Parshas Balak and Bilam, there are no stops. When something happens, a person who's a thinking person stops and asks themselves the question, why did this happen? And they figure it out. The famous story where Rabbi Eliyahu Lapian, he was walking up a flight of stairs and he slipped and he fell. And he sat on the stairs and people came, are you all right, Rabbi? Yeah, I'm all right. 20 minutes later, he's still sitting on the stairs. Are you all right? Yes. Half an hour later, someone comes over and says, Rabbi, are you all right? He says, yes. Why are you sitting on the stairs? He says, I've walked these stairs 1,000 times. I never fell. Why did I fall today? I'm trying to figure that out. So he sat there till he could figure it out. A person who stops, we say in English, stop and smell the roses. If you don't stop and smell the roses, you're never going to be impressed with life. But if a person is impressed with life, a person will stop and he'll smell the roses. There's a very interesting Gemara. It's a Gemara, I want to share it. It's Gemara in Baba Basra. This is fascinating. This is from a sefer called Torah Shlomo. The Gemara says, Moshe Kosav Sifro, Moshe wrote his book, the Sefer Torah. Some people say it refers to the book of Devarim. Yerushalmi says Chamishe Chumshe Torah. Uparshas Bilam, and the section of Bilam, and Sefer Iyov. Moshe wrote the book of Iyov, Job. So everybody says, once you tell me Moshe wrote the Torah, of course he wrote Parshas Balak. Isn't Balak part of the Torah? Right? So what does it mean? He wrote the Torah and Parshas Balak. Now Parshas Balak is bizarre because it happened without the Jews knowing what was going on. It was only afterwards Hashem told Moshe, I just wanted to let you know what's been happening the last few months, and told them the whole story. Moshe wrote some of Parshas Balak down, right, in the Torah. But you know what the Ritva says? The Ritva says something shocking. He says, I want you to know that what we have in the Torah is only a short version, one chapter of the story of Balak and Bilam. This was a relationship that went on for months. And Moshe Rabbeinu wrote an entire book, hundreds of pages, on the story of Balak and Bilam. All their conversations, all their tricks, all the things they wanted to do. But it got lost, and we don't have it, he says. He says, Avram Avinu wrote Mesechet Avodah Zarah. He wrote 400 prakim, 400 chapters. We have today Mesechet Avodah Zarah and Shas, it's 5 chapters. Rome Avinu had 400 chapters. We lost it. We don't have it. So the Ritva writes, right? There was a lot. Imagine we could find it. Boy, that book would be worth a fortune. The Ritva writes, shocking, that there was a book, that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah. He wrote the book of Eov, and he wrote a book called Balak and Bilam. And in that book, he wrote hundreds of pages of all the plots and the subplots and all the different things that were going on between these two people. And it's amazing, it's shocking what was going on between Balak and Bilam. We think we know the story. We don't know nothing of the story. The story is immense. It's complicated. It's deep. Balak and Bilam were trying to redo the entire world. And Moshe wrote it all down. And we lost it.
should have been Shema Yisrael too, right?
Right, we're going to talk about that in a moment. I mentioned before, just as a side thing, because Balak and Bilam talk about, if you come with me, I'm going to give you kavod. You got to listen to the story. In Israel, there was a yeshiva called Netzach Yisrael. The Rosh Yeshiva of Netzach Yisrael is Rav Gusman. Now, ArtScroll just came out with a book on him, a biography of Rav Gusman. I knew Rav Gusman because when I was in Israel, I used to go every week to hear his Shir Klali. He knew who I was, and I would walk. I was by Yeshivas Mir, and I would go to hear Rav Gusman every week because he was brilliant. How brilliant was he? He was in Vilna. And in Vilna, the head of the Vilna community in his time, who was one of the Gedolei Yisrael, was Reb Chaim Ozer Gedozovsky. He was a very close friend of the Chofetz Chaim. As a matter of fact, the Chofetz Chaim, whenever he had a difficult question, would travel to Vilna to speak to Reb Chaim Ozer. And Reb Chaim Ozer had a Beit Din that was world famous, world known. When one of the Dayanim on his Beit Din died, he appointed Rav Gusman, who was only 19 years old, to be part of the Beit Din. Now, just to give you an idea of Rav Gusman, before I get to the story is fascinating. When he used to walk with Reb Chaim Ozer, they used to walk through the fields and the forests near Vilna. Reb Chaim Ozer would say to Rav Gusman, you see that plant over there? If you crush the roots, you can get water out of those roots. See that plant over there? If you grind it up, you can make like a bread or a cookie. You can live off that. You can eat that. That's poisonous. Avoid that. Now, Rav Gusman is a 19-year-old kid. He didn't expect the Gadol Hador, like Moshe Feinstein, to teach him biology, botany, flowers. Never thought of it. But when the war broke out, Rav Gusman ran into the forest to hide. And all World War II, most of World War II, he hid in the forest. And he lived off the berries and off the roots and everything. Everything Rav Chaim Ozer told him saved his life. When he made it to Israel, and he started the yeshiva Netzach Yisrael, right by the front of the yeshiva, he planted a garden. And he put these roots and these flowers, he planted them, and every day he would water them, hakarat hatov, for saving my life. Okay, now here's a Rosh Yeshiva walking out with a water can every morning, you could see him, watering flowers, because they saved his life. That was Rav Gusman. It was an unusual person. Anyway, let's bring it home. Let's bring it home. Listen to this story. This is in the ArtScroll book. The yeshiva was very close to a senior citizen home. This senior citizen home used to prepare food. Chicken, pasta, whatever it is. If they had anything left over, instead of throwing it out, they would package it up and send it to the yeshiva, and the boys in the yeshiva had lunch, had supper. It was good for the yeshiva because the food was good, and it was free, so it was even better for the yeshiva. Okay. Who gave the kosher endorsement of this food? The Rabbanut. One day, some, call it Kanoi, Jerusalem Haredi, really religious people, come to Rav Gusman, and they say to Rav Gusman, I don't understand how you, as a Rosh Yeshiva, can use the food from that establishment. Because that's under the Rabbanut. It's not under the Bidat. It's not under the religious hechsher. It's like a modern hechsher, the Rabbanut, how do you? So Rav Guzman says, I happen to know the mashgiach there, and I happen to trust him, and I happen to like him, and I trust him. I'm not talking about Rabbanut in Haifa or Cholon or Tel Aviv, but I can tell you that this mashgiach is reliable, and therefore I trust the food. So this Haredi's guy said to Rav Guzman, he says, Rabbi, he says, in Yerushalayim, in Israel, we have two books. One book is the names of the good rabbis. And when everybody gets into that book, they get kavod and respect and honor. And one book is a book of the rabbis who we don't trust. And if your name goes in that book, nobody will respect you, and you will be, everywhere you go, you'll get embarrassed. So, what book do you want us to put you in? Are you still going to use the food over there or not? That's what he told him. Okay? It's interesting. Today they published a list of 160 rabbis that Israel doesn't accept. Did you know that? When I was in Israel, so a few years ago, I get that I had sent that came to Israel, but by then I knew Rabbi Leo ben Nahan very well, and Rabbi Duchovsky and Rabbi Yitzchok Peretz, so the get was accepted. I had another get that I sent, and there's a new man in charge. He didn't recognize my name, so he called one of the Rabbonim here in America, and he says, no problem, and it was accepted, and when I went to Israel, I met with him. Now they came out with a list of 160 rabbis, some Orthodox, some Lubavitch, some conservative, some Reform, from all over the world, that Israel officially does not accept. Not their conversions, nothing. I didn't make the list. Baruch Hashem. It's the one list I didn't make. Go figure. I thought for sure my name's on the list. My name's not on the list. That's why I could talk about it. Okay, I saw the list. My name's not on the list. I didn't make the list.
Was it like Bedin in Yerushalayim?
Yeah, it was someone from the Rabbi Roshi's office. There's a whole bunch of
Was
politics.
Rabbi Lau also involved in this?
Yeah, and he says he didn't authorize the list, and he's going to check into it. He's going to do an investigation. It came from the Sephardi chief rabbi's office.
Of the chief rabbi,
Yeah.
Rabbi Isaac Yosef?
Yes, he had appointed this guy to do this, and this guy was doing his job. He was checking into it. Anyway, so here's Rav Guzman. He has these real religious-looking guys in front of him, saying to him, "I got two books. If you don't play ball, you're going to go into the book, the bad book, and you're going to be very embarrassed. But if you listen to us and you play ball, then we're going to put you in a good book. And wherever you go, you'll get respect." So Rav Guzman said to them, listen to what Rav Guzman answered, and you got to hear this. Rav Guzman said that when I was 19 years old, Reb Chaim Oizer put me on his bet din. A few months later, there was an assembly of rabbis from all over Europe. The Chofetz Chaim, everybody was there. And I had to attend because I was a member of the Bet Din. I got delayed. I walked in 15 minutes late. When I walked in, everybody was there sitting. I walked in 15 minutes late. The minute I walked in, Reb Chaim Ozer stood up. The minute Reb Chaim Ozer stood up, what do you think happened to everybody else in the room? They all stood up. For me, a 19-year-old, nothing. He says, I experienced a wave of kavod, never equaled or matched anything in the world. Imagine, all the Rosh Hashivas and all the Rabbonim stood up for me. He says, a few years later, in World War II, the Nazis came and started beating me. And I was holding my 4-year-old son. And I was shielding my son, and they beat me, they beat my son. In the end, my son died. He says, my son died in my arms. And there was no other Jews around. I had to go carry my son to the cemetery. I had to dig a grave with my hands, and I had to bury my son. I never felt so small. I never felt so low. I never felt so broken and embarrassed in my whole life. So he turned to these guys and he says, listen to me. You can never give me in your book the respect I got from Reb Chaim Ozer. And you can never match the embarrassment in this book that I felt when I buried my son. So play your games someplace else. Because I experience the highs that you can't imagine, and I experience lows you can't even think about. So your books mean nothing to me. I've had it all. And he said, have a good day.
That was a nice nail.
Whoa,
Wow. He nailed it on the spot.
whoa. You're going to give me kavod. He says, you can't even match the kavod I've gotten in my life. You're going to embarrass me? He says, I got to tell you, I've been embarrassed by the best. There's nothing you can do that's going to embarrass me. I've already had that experience, he said. So therefore he says, do what you want with your books. He just walked out the door. It's an amazing story. An amazing nature of a person, the character, the greatness of this man. Greatness. Someone told me a story, a mashal. Listen to this mashal. He says there's this boat traveling the ocean, and it capsizes, it turns over, and one of the people on the boat survive, and they swim to an island. The minute he gets to the island, all of a sudden the people of the island proclaim him the king. You're the king, whoa! And they put him in the palace, and they start paying him taxes and gifts and everything else. And he's the king. Now he says, this is crazy. What, am I the king? I'm not the king. I don't even live here. I made me the king. Finally, he gets one of the servants, and he says to the servants, what's going on over here? What do you mean I'm the king? I'm not the king. This is a scam. What's it all about? He says, these people love torturing people. You know what happens? You're the king. For the next 6 months, you're going to get meals 3 times a day, and you're going to have servants, and you're going to have money, and you're going to put all the money in the treasury, and you're going to be on the top of the world. But then in 6 months from now, another boat's going to capsize. Someone else will swim to the island. They're going to make him the king, and they're going to come to you in the middle of the night. They're going to pack you up, throw you up, put you on a boat, and send you penniless away. So you're going to be going from 6 months of living in the lap of luxury to being a broken person. And they're going to be laughing all the way. And then in 6 months from now, they're going to do the same to the next guy and the next guy. This is their entertainment. So he says, so how do I outsmart these people? How do I win? He says, I tell you what you do, he says. In these 6 months, you're going to be collecting thousands, tens of thousands, millions of dollars of taxes and gifts and everything else. Don't put it in the treasury. Pack it up in boxes. And as ships go by, send it home to your house wherever you live. So when they throw you out thinking, they're going to destroy you, they threw you out penniless, when you come home, there'll be tens of boxes full with millions of dollars and you can retire a millionaire. And that's exactly what he did. And 6 months later, they threw him out, laughing at him that now he's broke and he's broken and he's on the boat. And he's laughing all the way home. He comes home and he has all his boxes and he has all the money and all the gold and all the silver and all the jewelry. And he's laughing. In those 6 months, he was a king and now he's a bigger king. He's as rich as Rothschild. What's the lesson? He says the lesson is as follows. We come into this world, our neshama is like thrown into this world like on a boat that gets turned over. And when we're little kids, our parents take care of us. We're like the king, right? Babies, I don't know, when you were growing up, were you the queen in your house? Were you the princess in your house? Most of us were. Most of us were the kings in our houses. But what happens is we go through life, and we're living the lap of luxury, and then when it's time to leave, we walk away with nothing. But the smart person says, no, I'm not going to put all this in the treasury. I'm going to do mitzvahs, I'm going to give tzedakah. So when I have to leave this world, where I'm no longer the king, I'll have something waiting for me when I really come back home. The neshama goes up to Shemayim, the neshama comes back home. So he says that that's the lesson to be learned. That when you come back home, there should be something waiting for you. I don't know if I told you this last week. My wife showed me something from Rabbi Tursky. Did I tell you something from Rabbi Tursky? Rabbi Tursky wrote a book. It's not as bad as it seems. It talks about Sholem Bayit. So he says, listen to this, Rabbi Tursky was interviewing a couple. And they were always fighting. So finally, Rabbi Tursky said to the man, what do you want? So the man says, I want to win. I want to be right. I'm the man of the house. So I fight and I argue until my wife gives in. I want to be right. I want to be the winner. So Rabbi Tursky said to the guy, if every time you fight, you win, It means your wife lost. You know what people are going to say? You married a loser. How are you going to feel if people say about you that you married a loser? I didn't marry a loser, I married a winner. Then let her win. That's what Rabbi Twersky said. Let her win a little bit. Don't always be right. Brilliant, Rabbi Twersky is who he is. Okay. Listen carefully to this. I'm trying to see where it begins over here, but listen carefully to this. There's some interesting things. This is from Rabbi Reisman. Rabbi Reisman gives shiurim. Sometimes I get them sent to me. Listen to what Rabbi Reisman says. He brings down from the Sefer Imrei Emes. He says in life there are two types of, we call them tzorot, tragedies, challenges. He says there's some you personally experience, you see coming. And when this happens, what do? You daven to Hashem, you do teshuvah, and Hashem saves you. That's the plan. In Egypt, the Jews were enslaved. It says, "Vaye'onchu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avodah." They were exhausted from all the work. They cried out to Hashem, and Hashem sent Moshe. When Amalek attacked, the Jews were afraid. Moshe, Aaron, Hur went up on the mountain. The Jews looked up, please help us, help us, help us. And Amalek lost. So sometimes you experience the illness, the pain, the tragedy, the crisis. You're caught up in the drama. And you do a cheshbon hanefesh, you daven, and you're saved. Sometimes, he says, there's things happening against us and we don't know about it. Like Balak and Bilam. The Navi says, Ami, my people, Zechorna, I want you to remember, Mayoatz Balak Melech Moab, what Balak Melech Moab wanted to do, and what Bilam ben Beor answered him. Leman das titkos Hashem. You should know how great Hashem is. There are things happening that you don't know. And yet, Hashem comes in because you're a good person and you did mitzvahs, and Hashem protects you, and you're not the wiser. He says, when that happens, you are following what Hashem did in Parshas Balak. He says, Rabbi Reisman, that one time he woke up, he realized he didn't pay his taxes on his house for like a whole year. And he was afraid the city was going to take his house away. So he runs down to the tax department with cash to pay his taxes, and he found out the taxes were paid. He was learning in Kollel, and somebody in the Kollel had gone ahead, and he didn't know this, paid his taxes. And he was not the wiser. To this day, he doesn't know who did it. He says that person acted like Hashem did in Parshas Balak. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know I didn't have to pay my taxes. I had to pay my taxes. I woke up too late. I realized that I was in trouble. I come down there, I'm not in trouble at all because it was paid already. He says that person was emulating HaKadosh Baruch Hu of Parshas Balak. He says that's the greatness of Am Yisrael. Then he said something else. Rabbi Reisman says that in the summertime, he goes to camp, he goes to the mountains. He says, and the kids in the camp ask him questions. What is the most common question he gets in camp? That was his question. What's the most common question in sleepaway camp? You ready for this? He says, every day a kid would come over to him and say, Rabbi, my mother sent me up a package of food. Where do kids keep their food packages? Under their bed. Mm-hmm. And then I went to sleep. And what's the halacha if you sleep on a bed that has food underneath?
He's getting some band-aid.
It has ruach ra, it has a bad spirit.
Yeah.
What should I do with the food now?
Trash.
I don't want to throw out my chocolate bars and my cookies. So Rabbi Reisman writes as follows. The minhag amongst Ashkenazim is that b'di'evid, you're allowed to use the food. Rabbi Kiva Eger says you're allowed to do it. But Rabbi Vaji Yosef is very strict and says, no way, no way, no how. So if the boy who comes to me is Ashkenazi, I tell him he can keep his food. But if the boy who comes to me is Sephardic, guess what happens?
Trash.
Trash. He has to throw out his food. So one of the boys, when he says you have to throw out the food, said, what is this ruach ra anyway? What is this evil spirit? So Rabbi Reisman said to him, did you ever wake up one morning, you had to go to minyan, but you didn't want to get out of bed, you just wanted to sleep? He says, yeah, it happens all the time. He says, that's ruach ra. Did you ever wake up one day and you wanted to do an avera versus a mitzvah? He says, yeah, that's a ruach ra. Did you ever want to speak lashon hara? He says, yeah, that's a ruach ra. So he says, how do you get rid of that? He says, well, wash your hands very carefully and try to do all the right things and get rid of that ruach ra. But that ruach ra are things that drive you to do bad things. So he says, get rid of those ruach ra's and you'll be a better person. Then he said, there's two questions, he said, kids once asked him. Listen to these questions. Okay, listen to this, brilliant question. Pinchas, in this week's parsha, is Pinchas a Kohen?
No.
No. What is he? He's a Levi. He's not a Kohen. He's not a Kohen because he fell through the cracks. Hashem said, Aharon, you, your children, and all that will be born are Kohanim. Pinchas was already born. So Pinchas wasn't Aaron, wasn't the children, and he wasn't going to be born. He was already born. He fell through the cracks, yes.
Wasn't Pinchas the son of Elazar and
Yes.
grandson of Aharon?
Yes.
Therefore, he's part of the children.
No,
Why not?
because you, your children, do not include grandchildren. Now you may think that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but
I went to a Din Torah last week, and the young lady who drove me, her husband died of cancer, and he got the cancer from 9/11. Okay? He was a member of Hatzalah, and he worked in Lower Manhattan during the cleanup process, and he ended up developing cancer, and he died from the cancer. So I asked her, did you ever get money from the fund? You know, there's this fund with millions, maybe $1 billion, to help victims who got cancer from 9/11. She says, no. I said, why not? She says, it's the strangest thing. In the fund, when it was set up for police officers, firefighters, and volunteers. My husband was not a police officer, was not a firefighter, and he was not a volunteer. He belonged to an organization called Hatzalah, and Hatzalah took a group of people down. So he doesn't fit into the categories. I said, well, that's crazy. Hatzalah is a volunteer ambulance service.
Yes.
But they didn't set it up for ambulance services. It was for police officers, firefighters, and volunteers, not people who work with an organization who send you down. So we are excluded. We don't get any money.
isn't Aaron's descendants, like when they say children, it means descendants? No.
Excluded. So she's taking it to court. They're fighting and she's in court right now. The Gemara says that Pinchas was not a Kohen. Now it's interesting, because the Gemara says, had he been a Kohen who killed someone is pasul for kahuna. So by not being a Kohen when he killed these two people, and then becoming a Kohen after, it was a perfect solution. Okay? Got it? So this was the first kid's question. Rabbi, I have a question. How did he become a Kohen? Because he killed these two people, right? What would have happened if Pinchas wasn't the guy who killed these two people? Let's say it was someone from Shevet Yehuda, or someone from Shevet Dan or Naphtali, who got so angry at these two people and took the spear and he killed them. Would Hashem made him a Kohen?
Probably.
Interesting question. Pinchas was a non-Kohen because he killed these two people. Hashem says, I'm going to reward you. You're going to be a Kohen. What if a stranger had done it? What if someone from another tribe completely? What if he had been a Kohen? What's it Yoshua ben Nun? Someone who's a Bechor, who could have been a Kohen, but he was substituted. And now he goes ahead and does this. Would his reward have been, you're going to be now a Kohen? So the answer probably is no. Pinchas got this because he was the son of Elazar ben Aaron. Everything you said meant he was excluded, but now we're going to put him back in. So that's probably the answer. But it's an interesting question. Someone else raised a different question. He says, when the Kohanim do the brachot, what do they say? Asher ki dishanu b'kedushaso shel Aharon. But only half the Kohanim came from Aharon. The other half of the Kohanim came b'kedushaso shel Pinchas. So why doesn't the bracha say Asher ki dishanu b'kedushaso shel Aharon u'Pinchas? And he commanded us to give the bracha. Because Pinchas did not become a Kohen from the Kedusha of Aharon. He became a Kohen because Hashem rewarded him. What's the answer to that question? He says, maybe next week I'll give you the answer. And I don't have next week's sheet, so I can't tell you. Life's tough in this ass life. 2, next week, man, you don't want to miss. What was Zimri ben Solu thinking? He was going to take a non-Jewish princess of Moab, and he was going to have relations with her, and that was going to be okay. In which universe? And he was, imagine he was the Chofetz Chaim doing that. Imagine he was Reb Moshe Farsi. Imagine he was Reb Avadri Yosef. And all of a sudden he goes out and he says, I'm taking that Goya princess and I'm going to have relations with her. What was he thinking?
He probably had in mind that she was going to convert for him, no?
What was he thinking? We're going to find out. And he had relations with her more than once. We're going to find out.
But in Torah, there's so many relationships where the Benot Bnei Elohim, the Veiru Bnei Elohim is Benot Haaretz.
Yeah, was it good or not good?
With Avraham Avinu.
Yeah.
And there's another relationship, man and woman. It talks about the Yosef HaTzadik with Potiphar. There's another relationship that talks about the Zimri's case. So the Torah is always on that specific relationship. Always talks about very touchable, that touches the human body and human psychology with the Zimri ben Salom Kozbi Batzu. And this is something that cannot be taken from a human being's psychology, from his nature, from human nature, which touches him a lot. Specifically taking all the Bereshit, Shemot.
Hold that thought, but we're going to find out next week. It's already 9:30. Look at that, how time flies when you're having fun.
So what about if somebody else and not the Pinchas would be going to?
So the answer is probably not. It was probably because Pinchas had all the ingredients to be a Kohen, and it was only a technicality. So in the zchus of what he did, Hashem took away the technicality. I suspect that's the real answer. I think his neshama was Kohen from beginning to end. But so probably he would have been. Someone else would not have been the Kohen. And why then does he say B'kedusha Shel Aaron? I guess when he became the Kohen, he then connected to Aaron, so he connected that way. But no, next week I'm going to give you some fascinating insights. Fascinating insights. How many korbanot did Balak bring each week?
42.
He brought all 42, but how much each mizbeach? How many times?
6.
No, he had 7 mizbeach.
2 each.
2 each. How much is that? 2 times 7 is 14. What's the gematria of the word David? 14.
Master, you also said something where you were
Have a good night.
this week.
Enjoy yourself.